Chuck E. Cheese's, known as the place where a kid can be a kid, has been a part of nearly everyone's childhood, including me. This popular pizza chain is best known for many things, like pizza and the arcade games. But the one thing that CEC is known most for is their colorful cast of characters, like Chuck E. Cheese himself. However, surprisingly, this video is not about him. Instead, it's about one of the many side characters, that being the country dog, Jasper T Jowls. This larger-than-life canine has been with the company since the very beginning, appearing in numerous places around each restaurant, whether that is an animatronic, a costumed character, a poster, or merchandise. But what many people may not know is how many different versions of the Jasper character have existed throughout the 45 years he's been around. So in this video, I'm going to go over the entire history of Jasper, going over not just his mascot suits and animatronics, but also his general character design and personality. This is the history of Jasper T Jowls from Chuck E. Cheese. Before I go over the history of Jasper, I recommend you guys watch my first history video on Chuck E. Cheese first. I go a little more in-depth with the development of CEC there, but if you haven't seen it, then check it out after this video. But for now, let me summarize the events that came before the creation of Jasper, aka the creation of Pizza Time Theater. So the creation of CEC began when Atari founder Nolan Bushnell, who also went on to create Chuck E. Cheese's, bought a quote-unquote coyote costume at the IAAPA Expo. I say coyote in quotations because when he received the costume, it was actually a rat costume, not a coyote. Bushnell rolled with it anyway and themed the restaurant after the rat, and that's when Chuck E. Cheese was born. However, Bushnell didn't just want a pizza restaurant with an arcade. He wanted something more. Some entertainment. But what kind of entertainment? Well, he remembered how much he wanted to work for Disney, and came up with a great idea. Why not use animatronics? But then came a problem. There was no way Chucky could do a whole show by himself. At least not yet. He needed some friends, or at least some other characters to work off of. I mean, Ronald McDonald has friends, Mickey Mouse has friends, and don't even get me started on the Looney Tunes, so why not Chuck E. Cheese? Enter Gene Landrum, Atari's Consumer Division President, who had also been made the General Manager of Pizza Time Theater. He, alongside Atari advertising firm, Robert Allen Black, came up with a bunch of new characters to go with Chucky. They created an Italian chef named Pasquale, a black and white cat named Krusty, a group of singing birds called the Warblets, and of course, the star of this video, a banjo-playing country dog named Billy Banjo Boggs. Hold on, let me explain. So you're probably confused right now that I didn't call him Jasper. Well, that's because he wasn't named that originally. Yes, Jasper's original name was Billy Banjo Boggs, and it stayed like that all throughout the development of the restaurant. Atari even copyrighted the name, but for unknown reasons towards the restaurant's opening, Billy Banjo Boggs' name was changed to Jasper T Jowls. The T in Jasper T Jowls stands for Tennessee, since according to Chuck E. Cheese lore, Jasper was originally from Tennessee. Also, fun fact, there's actually a town in Tennessee named Jasper, and that's actually where his first name came from. And lastly, the jowls part refers to his really droopy looking snout, also called jowls. As for why a country dog was chosen to be one of Chucky's nitwits, there were a few reasons. The main reason being that the company wanted to create a country western character because country music was starting to get popular in the 1970s. As for Jasper being a dog, it's probably because, well, everybody loves dogs. But I think maybe, just maybe, Jasper was based off Goofy. I mean, come on, they're both dogs, they both have very similar personalities, and to top it all off, they're both friends with rodents. Now, it's not confirmed if Jasper was inspired by Goofy, but I want to believe that was the case. Not to mention Jasper's original voice, which I'll talk about later. So with Jasper's character design, personality, and everything else in the development stage done, Jasper was ready to greet everyone at the grand opening of Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater in San Jose on May 17th, 1977. In the next chapter, I will go over Jasper's history in the Pizza Time Theater era, including more info on his character, as well as voices, mascot suits, and animatronics. Don't think I forgot about those.
This is the place for you and your friends. This is the place where the party never ends. It's the good time place, everyone agrees. When you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese. Chuck E. Cheese, Chuck E. Cheese. When you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese.
It's a good time place that's sure to please.
When you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese. When you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese.
So towards the beginning of Chuck E. Cheese's, Jasper was described as the doggonest banjo-strummin' country-singin' hound around. He was a total lunatic, and very dim-witted, and also laughed at basically anything. These traits were definitely visible on his character design. The Pizza Time Theater Jasper was a brown hound dog with large jowls and buck teeth. He wore a straw hat, blue overalls, and brown shoes. And before someone asks, yes, Jasper is a hound dog. I know there's been some confusion about what species of dog he's supposed to be, but I can confirm he was a type of hound. Most likely a basset hound or a bloodhound. Also, I don't know if it's just me, but doesn't Pizza Time Theater Jasper kind of look more like a hillbilly or a redneck? I don't know, I'm not getting a western vibe from this design. He looks almost identical to Droopy Dog. I wonder if that's what they were going for. While this Jasper did look like Droopy, his voice certainly was far from that. It was more goofy. You see, originally, John Widelock, who would later go on to be the first official voice of Chuck E. Cheese, actually voiced all the characters for the demo recordings. And his voice for Jasper sounds nearly identical to Goofy, only being slightly deeper.
Sure, Chucky. This is my latest song, and Chuck is gonna sing it with me.
However, by the time of the first restaurant's opening, Jasper was instead voiced by Scott Pollan, who made Jasper have a higher-pitched voice. He portrayed Jasper as being easily excitable, and had a contagious laugh. I wonder if he ever lost his voice doing all that laughing and screaming for Jasper.
Oh, I wish I was in a land of cotton, old times there not forgotten.
Of course, Jasper couldn't have just a voice and artwork. He had to be at the restaurant in the flesh. That's right, it's time to talk about the animatronics. So the original Jasper animatronic, like the rest of the Pizza Time players, was made by Harold Gold Branson. He also made the original walk-around costumes, which I will mention a little later. This animatronic was referred to as the Portrait Bot due to him being stuck to the wall of the restaurant with a frame around him. As you can see, the Jasper animatronic was pretty different compared to both the animatronics of today and the 2D artwork. His head is much smaller, and his muzzle is very different and made from latex. Also, he has more clothing, with the inclusion of a blue bandana, and he's actually wearing a shirt which is red. And finally, he has no buck teeth. The bot was also more quote-unquote homemade, since its movements were very simple, and was controlled more like a large puppet. Moving on to the walk-around costume, it's actually unclear on if a Jasper costume was present at the first location. Obviously, Chucky was there, but I don't think any of his friends had costumes just yet. It wouldn't be until the opening of the second Pizza Time Theater in 1978, also in San Jose, known by many as Coozer, where we would get to see our first look at a Jasper T Jowls mascot suit. The first Jasper costume looks very similar to the first animatronic, as the two share many things in common, like how they both look different from the artwork and the inclusion of red shirts. The only difference being the costume sporting a darker brown color and the eyes being darker, although that's probably because that's the mesh for the employee to see out of. I'm curious as to why the robot and costume were so different compared to the artwork. Perhaps it was due to limited materials? I also wonder if the animatronic and costume head used the same snout molds, since Chucky's bot and costume did that. Speaking of Coozer Road, this is also where we would get to see our second Jasper animatronic. This Jasper portrait bot, while definitely more advanced, was still relatively homemade looking, and I'm not sure what's going on with his eyes, but they're kinda creeping me out. This would ultimately be the last homemade animatronic for Jasper, since by the time the next few locations opened, the animatronics switched to the style we know as the Cyberamics, back then known as the Ottoman bots. These guys were notable for being much larger and less realistic. The Jasper Cyberamic was notable for sporting many wrinkles on the face. Also, like the originals before him, this Jasper could not really move his arms due to them being bent so they could hold the banjo. And speaking of the banjo, originally the company used real banjos on Jasper. However, because of how heavy the real banjos were, it caused wear and tear on the animatronics. So CEC reached out to a company called Riordacto, I don't know how to pronounce that, and had them make lightweight polyurethane banjos for the Jasper bots. Oh, one more thing. Did you guys know Jasper actually had a pipe? Yep, that's right. It wasn't just Chucky that smoked. Jasper did too. You can actually see a pipe on the original and Ottoman bot. This would be short-lived though. So in the original Pizza Time Theater show tapes, Jasper was of course his derpy, lovable self, but he was oftentimes the butt of the joke, and was made fun of, mostly by Chuck E. Cheese himself. Chuck would always be mean to Jasper. Well, I mean, Chuck was rude to the other characters, but Jasper was the one who got it worse. This would start a running gag where Chucky would refer to Jasper by a very well-known name by now, the Fruitcake Dog. Chuck would even break the fourth wall on multiple occasions, telling the people controlling the animatronics to turn off the Fruitcake Dog.
No, turn off the dog, please, turn off the Fruitcake Dog there. The button on the left, hit the button. That's better.
Later on, when the guest star characters were being introduced, Jasper flirted with all of them, much to the dismay of Chuck. Jasper quickly became a popular character amongst fans of the restaurant. Not as popular as Chucky himself, but still beloved. In later locations, Jasper would be represented on merchandise and wall art, all of it being based on the original character art, and not the animatronics or walkarounds. The prize counters were even named Jasper's General Store, as a nod to our favorite fruitcake dog. Speaking of the walkarounds, by the early 80s Chuck E. Cheese attended many local events, and sometimes he would bring his friends. Jasper seemed to be the one that came along with Chuck the most, as there's tons of photos of him at different events, from hanging out with Ronald McDonald, to visiting baseball games, to even riding an elephant. In 1983, Pizza Time Theater was struggling, so the company made some changes, and Jasper was a part of them. For example, Jasper's personality was changed. He was made softer, and his wild side was toned down, making his character more versatile in both singing parts and the types of songs he was given, and was overall smarter. Also, Jasper stopped flirting with guest stars since those were retired, and Helen Henny was made a permanent character. Also around this time, Jasper's mascot costumes were standardized, after there was some inconsistency with Jasper's costumes due to limited materials. Some Jasper costumes looked completely different from others. These include things like the color of clothes, or how some Jaspers had eyelids and others didn't. The new Jasper heads were made from, I think, fiberglass or plastic, and the eyes were thicker. Speaking of the costumes, another major costume change occurred around 1982 or 1983, the articulated Jasper.
Once I had this wild idea for a place where you could eat pizza, salads, and sundaes, and play exciting new games, see a show. I'd call it Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater. I just wonder if anyone would come. Now, while supplies last, you can get a Chuck E. Cheese backpack free when you buy any large pizza and a salad at a participating Pizza Time Theater.
So we all know Chucky had an articulated head, but some people forgot that his friends did too. The Jasper articulated costume has very little information on it, and I could only find it in this one commercial featuring it. And like the rest of these costumes, it was never used in any restaurants, just in the commercials. Jasper looked to have the most limited movement out of the 4 articulated walkarounds, as his mouth doesn't appear to move, and the only thing that does move are his ears and his hat. Also, this Jasper has a pretty long neck, but that's probably due to the mechanisms inside the head. It's unknown if more commercials featuring this Jasper were created, or if this was the only one. Most Pizza Time Theater commercials are lost media, so there's no telling. I want to believe there are a few more, since why else would Pizza Time Theater build one if it was only going to be used in one commercial? One more thing to come around this time was the infamous cancelled Chuck E. Cheese Christmas special, The Christmas That Almost Wasn't. You see, Nolan Bushnell had recently opened an animation studio called Cadabroscope, and someone had the idea to create a Chuck E. Cheese themed Christmas special. This special was going to be aired on NBC during Christmas 1983, but something happened that would kill this project: the infamous video game crash of 1983. Since the crash caused a huge effect on Pizza Time Theater, the special was cancelled and never released, though all the voice work was done, with Scott Paulin reprising his role as Jasper. In the following year, 1984, Pizza Time Theater was really struggling, largely from the video game crash of 1983. So from all the money lost and the many stores failing and oversaturating the market, Pizza Time Theater made a difficult decision to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in mid-1984. Thankfully, this bankruptcy didn't last too long, as the company was purchased by their popular competitor, Showbiz Pizza Place. The two companies remained separate at first, but beginning around 1986, they merged into one company, Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated. As for Jasper, he wasn't badly affected. Everything mostly stayed the same with him. Well, other than his voice. I don't know why, but soon after the merger between Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz Pizza, they immediately decided to recast all the Pizza Time players' characters to have different voices. Yes, Scott Paulin, Jasper's voice actor from the beginning, was fired, and fellow Pizza Time Theater voice actor Scott Wilson, who originally voiced Munch and later Chucky, took over Jasper from January to around February or March 1986. And while I do like Scott Wilson, I'm not the biggest fan of his Jasper voice. It sounds too much like the Mad Hatter, almost as if Jasper was returning to his goofy, dim-witted roots.
I just love to sing. I really get a howl.
In April 1986, the show tape History of Rock and Roll was released, and this would be the introduction of the Jasper voice we are most familiar with, and would go on to influence later voices of the character. I'm of course talking about Bob West. Yes, that Bob West, the voice of Barney the Dinosaur himself, did Jasper's voice. CEC was actually his first professional voice acting job. His Jasper voice was notable for being much higher, and not derpy sounding. And unlike some of the other Showbiz voices, Bob West got to stick around and become Jasper's official voice actor.
You can be a Yukon dance all hero, having fun when it's
Around the late 80s, we finally saw a new Jasper animatronic created. This time it was a full-body cyberamic, which debuted on the stage we know as the Rocker stage. He was the exact same bot seen in the portrait and balcony stages, but now he's got legs, and is sitting on a chair on what is supposed to be the front porch of a house. The company actually tried to create a full-body Jasper bot in the early 80s, but it was abandoned, until the introduction of the Rocker stage in the late 80s. And aside from those few changes, that's pretty much it for Jasper in the Pizza Time Theater era. The costumes, animatronics, and artwork all stayed the same going into the late 80s into the 90s. But if you're a Chuck E. Cheese fan, you can probably tell where this story is going. Behind the scenes, there was conflict between Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz Pizza, and at the end of it, only one brand was left standing, and this would lead to even more changes to both the company and Jasper.
So just the other day, my dad says, "Hey guys, let's have pizza." Then he asked me what I want on the pizza. So I said, everything. Lots of cheese, pepperoni, spaceships, cars, balls, a helicopter, mushrooms, slides, sauce, e-balls, race cars, robots, games, hoops, a mouse. You know, the works. They got the picture.
Chuck E. Cheese, where a kid can be a kid.
So in 1989, Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated, the parent company of both CEC and Showbiz Pizza, were having trouble with getting the rights to the Showbiz Pizza band, the Rockafire Explosion. So instead, the company decided to revamp and convert all Showbiz Pizza places into Chuck E. Cheese's. This controversial move was called Concept Unification. Concept Unification meant that all the previous Showbiz Pizza artifacts, including the Rockafire Explosion, were to be recycled, or in some cases, destroyed, and replaced with the Chuck E. Cheese brand and characters. For example, the Rockafire character Beach Bear was repurposed into Jasper T Jowls, with different cosmetics. You can watch the Concept Unification tapes on YouTube, but I will warn you, it could make you cry. Here's a fun fact: Jasper was always intended to replace Beach Bear on the 3-stage. If you look at the 3-stage prototype Jasper, it's also using the Beach Bear mech. Another thing to mention is that because Jasper has brown eyes, Beach Bear's eyes were swapped out with another Rockafire character, Rolf the Wolf. So Jasper could have brown eyes, and Chuck E. Cheese could have blue eyes. Along with the company rebrand and replacement of the Rockafire Explosion, Jasper would go through a major redesign. His classic Pizza Time Theater design, which was still being used up until this point, was officially retired, and Jasper was given a more modern design. This is the design of Jasper most people see as the definitive and most iconic design of the character. This is the redesign that gave Jasper his recognizable cow spot shirt, which would also have different spot designs throughout the years. He got to keep his overalls, but now he has a red bandana, and he traded in his straw hat for a proper cowboy hat. And finally, he's got a pair of red and white tennis shoes. It wasn't just his wardrobe that changed, but Jasper himself got a facelift. He was made to look younger, softer, and more cartoony. He lost a lot of that original droopy dog bloodhound look, and his teeth were removed. Personality-wise, he was pretty much the same as he was before the rebrand, but now he was made even smarter than before. Going back to the animatronics, I already kinda talked about the 3-stage Jasper, but I didn't really go into specifics. I'm not a big fan of the original 3-stage Jasper, and that's mostly due to his very creepy latex mask. Some masks don't look too bad, but most just look downright creepy. Also, you may have noticed that Jasper no longer has a banjo. And that's correct, he now plays an electric guitar. There's actually quite a few different guitars that he played, but I'll save those for another chapter. As for older Pizza Time Theater Cyberamics, they weren't impacted too much, as really the only changes made were the introduction of the cowboy outfit. Also, now all Chuck E. Cheese animatronic stages had televisions, so that the cartoon and costume counterparts could entertain people before or during a performance. Speaking of costumes, 1990 was around the time a brand new Jasper costume was created. It first debuted in show tapes, but would soon be introduced into the restaurants. This Jasper mascot suit was quite similar to the Pizza Time Theater costume, but it is different. For example, the head and muzzle are now much bigger, and he's now wearing this cowboy hat and red bandana. His face is also now a much lighter tannish brown color, and he lost a lot of his wrinkles. Lastly, he's got bigger eyes. His wardrobe was also similar to the previous costume, but now he's just got different overalls with the name on the front pocket, the cow print shirt, and the red sneakers. This costume was designed by the mascot making company, Cowan Costumes, who continues to make CEC mascots even to this day. They also made some of the cosmetics for the animatronics. While the Jasper mascot was used the most in the show tapes, there was another television exclusive version of Jasper used, a puppet. Yep, this is where we get into the puppet era for CEC. And while I'm not really a big fan of some of the 90s puppets, I do really like the Jasper. He's a little unsettling at times, but that could just be because of his kinda rubbery face. I actually like this Jasper's face over the 3-stage one, mostly because everything is colored correctly and his head is much wider. While Jasper himself was redesigned everywhere, his voice stayed the exact same as it was before the rebrand. Bob West was still his official voice actor, but now here's where things get a little crazy. You see, throughout the early to mid 90s, Bob West kept getting replaced as the voice of Jasper, but then coming back to voice him shortly after. Jasper went through so many voice actors during this time, and there's a reason for that, which I will mention in a little bit. But for now, here's some of the voice actors to play Jasper throughout the 90s. So starting around 1992, a man named Charles Stewart would be brought on to be only the singing voice for Jasper. Bob West was still going to be the speaking voice. Charles' take on Jasper's voice was similar to Bob West, but he also put his own spin on Jasper, sometimes having Jasper sound deeper and more like the Rockafire Explosion character Duke LaRue, coincidentally also a dog.
When I wake up, I'm excited 'cause a new day's waiting for me. Yep.
He would continue to play Jasper until 1993 when Scott Wilson, who played Jasper before in 1986, took over for a year before Bob West came back to voice Jasper until 1994. In January 1994, Duncan Brannon, the longtime voice of Chuck E. Cheese, did Jasper's singing voice throughout the year, while another actor named Reggie Smith did Jasper's speaking voice. Both gave Jasper a much different sounding voice, giving the character a much lower voice and not really country-like.
Jasper T Jowls here, playing guitar, and the super is coolest kind of star.
Then around August 1995, Bob West briefly came back to do Jasper's speaking voice, while Duncan continued doing the singing parts. Reggie Smith would then take over for the rest of 1995. Finally, Bob West came back again for a final time in 1996 and became Jasper's official speaking voice permanently, though Duncan Brandon still did Jasper's singing voice a few times throughout late 1996 and most of 1997. Whew! Man, I'm out of breath from that voice actor timeline. My head's spinning. So now you're probably wondering why Jasper went through so many voice actor changes throughout the 90s. Well, you can blame that on a certain company, the Walt Disney Company. That's right, around 1994 Chuck E. Cheese partnered with Disney to produce all the show tapes. So I'm guessing Disney felt that they needed to replace all the previous CEC voice actors, since it wasn't just Jasper who got several voice changes. Why they tried to do this, I don't know. Maybe they just wanted to freshen things up. Or maybe they couldn't get the original voice actors. But either way, Chuck E. Cheese would continue to work with Disney for a couple more years after. As the 90s went on, Jasper was represented on several items and merchandise. It wasn't as much as it was back in the Pizza Time Theater days, but he did get a few plushies here and there, along with some parody posters and records. I especially like this Indiana Jowls poster, and to my friend Chatty Chucky, here's Jasper as Michael Jackson. One really cool thing to come from the late 90s was this epic-looking Jasper airplane ride. It's similar to that Chuck E. Cheese car ride that takes your photo, but this time it's Jasper in an airplane. It unfortunately doesn't take your photo. I'm not sure which locations had this ride, but I do know a few locations in Chile had them at some point. The 1990s also brought in some new Jasper cyberamics. These include the road stages, which featured a half-bodied Jasper like what Pizza Time Theater had, as well as both the 2-stage and 1-stage, featuring a full-bodied Jasper. These Jaspers were pretty much the same as the rocker stage animatronics, but a little more advanced. Also, Jasper got a new mask that no longer features wrinkles, though some locations still did keep the Pizza Time Theater mask. Unfortunately, this would be the last Jasper animatronic figure to ever be created, as by the following year, CEC had something big up their sleeves, something a little more 90s and futuristic. 1997 was a big year for the company, as Chuck E. Cheese's was celebrating its 20th anniversary that year. One of the things that came from this anniversary was a brand new animatronic stage known as the Awesome Adventure Machine. This stage, while being amazing and epic, it only featured one animatronic, that being Chuck E. Cheese himself, in the center. On the right and left sides of the stage, they had two large screens, and that's where the other characters, including Jasper, were seen on. Jasper and the other characters were portrayed by their walk-around counterparts, but there was something different about them. Remember when they used articulated costumes in the early 80s? Well, in the late 90s, they came back. Now, all of the characters in the show tapes featured articulated costumes. These were more advanced than the original ones, and were more accurate to their designs of the characters. However, they didn't really move all that well. Like, Jasper barely moves his mouth, and his eyelids were a whole other story. But on the bright side, he didn't look as creepy as some of the others. Sadly, the Awesome Adventure Machine was never mass-produced due to being too expensive and hard to maintain, so the company instead created another stage, but far less expensive and easier to maintain, Studio C, which also only featured Chucky as an animatronic. There were apparently plans to phase out all of Chucky's friends, including Jasper, to only be replaced by a new character named Bird. This would ultimately never happen, thank God. The articulated costumes remained in the show tapes, but now Studio C had another unique feature not seen on stages with all 5 characters. That's brand new puppets. And guys, this Jasper puppet is my absolute favorite out of all the Jasper puppets. This is the one that I grew up with, and it just looks so accurate to Jasper's cartoon design, even more so than the animatronics. Towards the end of 1998 into 1999 marked the end of an era for Jasper. Well, actually not the character, but his voice. That's right, Bob West officially left the role of Jasper after 12 years, and not long after, Jasper went through another change, though this one, while being subtle, still left a major impact on many CEC fans.
We come and buy, you can't deny, we have a ball, we do it all at Chuck E. Cheese's. Yeah, this is where we flip our lid, 'cause it's a real cool place to be. Oh, kid, Chuck E. Cheese's.
Thank you.
In 1999, Chuck E. Cheese was going through many changes, like how the company changed their name to CEC Entertainment, but some changes also applied to the characters. Jasper was one character to receive the least amount of changes. Really, his overall design, including the animatronics, walk-around suits, among other things from the Tux era, were brought over to the Avenger era. This meant no real big changes had to be made to Jasper. The main difference between Tux Jasper and Avenger Jasper is that Avenger Jasper was more of a wisecracker, similar to Pizza Time Theater Chuck. But while that Chuck was a wisecracking jerk, Jasper's wisecracking was mostly done in a joking way, like breaking the fourth wall. A lot.
Oh, what do you mean, Munch?
You kept saying you were walking. Where are you walking?
Well, I'm not actually going anywhere, Munch. Where would I go? This is my place.
Besides, he's totally bolted to the floor.
Good point.
Of course, this Jasper couldn't be a wisecracker if he didn't have a voice, and since Bob West left the role in 1998, Jasper needed a new voice. This is where we finally get to meet Jasper's well-known and longest-serving voice actor, Jeremy Blado. Hey, I said his name right! His Jasper voice was nearly identical to Bob West's voice. There's really no difference. It's a spot-on impression.
When you feel down and out, sing a song.
He first started voicing Jasper in early 1999, and one of his first big projects was something that would soon become a cult classic. So around 1999, CEC Entertainment signed a deal with a little-known company at the time called Funimation. Yes, that Funimation. To produce a live-action Chuck E. Cheese movie using the articulated mascot costumes called Chuck E. Cheese and the Galaxy 5000. So in the movie, the articulated Jasper had no changes to his normal appearances, and that includes the bad mouth movements, although sometimes they would use the non-articulated heads. By the way, can I just say that Jasper is probably one of the best parts of this entire movie? Literally anytime he's on screen, I end up cracking up. Not to mention he has one of the best songs in it. In the film, Jeremy Blado reprised his role as Jasper, but there were two people who portrayed Jasper's costume. Those two people being Micah Murnica and Shay Coldwell. So in 1999, Chuck E. Cheese and the Galaxy 5000 was released straight to video and made exclusive to CEC restaurants, as well as other retailers like Toys R Us. It was almost immediately met with mixed to negative reviews, and sort of became forgotten, although it does have its fans, and has gained a cult following. While on the topic of costumes, even though I said that Jasper mascot suits didn't change in the Avenger era, that was a lie, because they were modified quite a bit. Most of the changes occurred with the head, as now the tan parts of his face are now more of a lighter brown color. Also, his eyes are a lot darker for some reason. Another change made was the cow spots on his shirt were made larger. The animatronics, while never really changing, did see one major difference. They finally got rid of that ugly latex Jasper mask in the 2000s and replaced it with a plastic mask. This is the mask everyone's familiar with when it comes to 3-stage Jasper. This mask is really good, and probably one of the best CEC animatronic designs ever made. Unfortunately, the early 2000s would also mark a sad end to a well-known Jasper animatronic, the very first one from the original location in 1977. You see, after Winchester closed, a lot of the animatronics were sent to the CEC corporate offices and put on display. Sadly, the building would flood around the early 2000s, and during the renovation, they threw out the bots and destroyed them. Now, you already know how much I hate how Chuck E. Cheese destroys their animatronics today, but this one infuriates me. It was literally the very first one-of-a-kind Jasper, and you're just gonna throw him out like that? How stupid can you be, CEC? Even if it was water damaged, you don't just throw out a historic artifact! In terms of other miscellaneous things about Avenger Jasper, he did have a few pieces of merchandise, but not much. There was also this really cool looking Jasper Toddler Zone doghouse that was tested at some Texas locations. This Jasper made a few appearances outside the restaurant, but not as many as the Pizza Time Theater Jasper did. He appeared at a couple sports games and several Chuck E. Cheese fan conventions like Cheesevention and ChuckyCon. And while Jasper didn't appear in any commercials, he was animated on a few separate occasions in segments or show tapes. Finally, Jasper made several video game appearances, his most notable being in Chuck E. Cheese's sports games, and if you watched the Game Grumps, you would know why.
I am programmed not to harm anyone.
Hello, I am friend dog.
For the next decade or so, Jasper stayed the same, and was acting the same as he always had been. Then came 2011, when a strange thing happened involving Jasper. For some reason, from mid to late 2011, Jasper had a noticeably different voice. Jeremy Blado was not the one voicing Jasper. Instead, Robert Gotcher, who previously voiced Jasper in May 1992, took over the role. No one knows why Jeremy didn't voice Jasper during this time. Maybe he was unavailable? Maybe he was sick? Who knows? Robert's Jasper voice was definitely more of a poor impression of Jeremy's, but he did sound better when singing. It really gave off those country music vibes.
When you show how much you care.
However, by January 2012, Jeremy had returned to voice Jasper, and he continues to be the voice of Jasper to this day. Avenger Jasper would go on to remain in the restaurants for about 15 years, before being quietly retired in 2014. But I want to backtrack for a moment, because as many CEC fans know, a few years earlier in 2012, something drastic and controversial happened. Something that would change the company and the characters forever.
Chuck E. Cheese's, where a kid can be a Adventure! Even a race car driver! How about cheese? Where a kid can be a kid!
Around mid-2012, CEC Entertainment introduced him, Rockstar Chuck E. Cheese. This was the brand new design of Chuck E. Cheese that would soon be at all locations. Now the reason I said Rockstar Chuck is controversial is because when he was first introduced, the general public did not like this rodent and wanted nothing to do with him. But CEC didn't care what its customers thought, and Rockstar went ahead and replaced Avenger Chuck in every aspect of the business. Well, everything except for Chucky's friends. Yeah, for some reason, despite Chucky being redesigned, none of his friends changed their designs. The Avenger designs carried over to the Rockstar era, but that would change pretty soon. Throughout the rest of 2012, we still had Avenger Jasper, but beginning in 2013, we would start to see some changes being made to Jasper and the rest of Chucky's friends. For starters, a brand new puppet would be introduced into the Studio C show tapes, which would soon be phased out and show tapes would soon be standardized for any CEC stage. This Jasper puppet is kinda underwhelming. That's not to say it's a poorly designed puppet, it's just that the original Studio C version looked so much better. Though this look does make him look more Muppet-like. Strangely enough, the Avenger Jasper costumes were still being used in the show tape videos, all the way up until 2014, when the puppets took over. Speaking of 2014, that's when Avenger Jasper was officially retired, and Rockstar Jasper was introduced. Rockstar Jasper saw the biggest change the character received since the 90s. His fur was now light brown with dark brown ears, his snout was also no longer white, and the bloodhound elements were mostly erased from his design, though he is still confirmed to be a hound dog. As for his wardrobe, he still has a red bandana, but he ditched his cowboy hat. His iconic cow print shirt was now gone, and replaced with a blue plaid shirt with red details. He also traded in his overalls for regular blue jeans, with a belt that has a buckle with a J on it. Finally, he now wears cowboy boots, a better change of footwear instead of sneakers. His personality also softened, as he wasn't really much of a wisecracker, but instead he was more loyal and always willing to help out. They also made Jasper do more quote-unquote dog things, like going on a walk or fetching a ball. Oh, did I mention he's CGI now? Even though Jasper got redesigned, he never received a mascot costume based on the new look, and the animatronics didn't get updated clothing. Most locations that had a Jasper costume still continued to use it alongside Rockstar Chuck. The one change that was made to both was the removal of Jasper's cowboy hat. Interestingly, around 2016 or 2017, CEC started using a weird prototype Rockstar Jasper suit. It consisted of the head of Avenger Jasper, but without the hat, but a new clothing design that looks similar to Rockstar Jasper. Thankfully, it wasn't used much, probably because of how cursed it looked, and only showed up at places like the debut of CEC 2.0. Oh wait, I meant the abomination known as CEC 2.0. Also in 2017, we got a new Jasper puppet, which looks a lot better than the last one. This is also one of my favorite CEC puppets. I guess Jasper just really translates well to a puppet. In 2018, we would finally see a brand new Jasper mascot costume created, also created by Cowan Costumes. This Jasper costume ditched the classic head that was used for over 40 years in favor of a brand new head that's closer to a CG Rockstar look. And yeah, I love it. I honestly like it more than the modern Chucky costume. He just looks so happy and innocent, and everything is proportioned right. Even though I will always like the older Tux/Avenger Jasper costume, for nostalgia reasons, I do enjoy this new Jasper costume. As for other things involving Jasper in the Rockstar era, since we're still in that era, he hasn't really done much, but there's still a lot to talk about. Like how CEC is finally starting to bring the side characters back into the spotlight when it comes to outside the shows. For example, Jasper got new merchandise, like plushies and this god-awful looking figure. Rockstar Jasper has a few video game appearances, like Chuck E. Cheese Racing and Chuck E. Cheese's Party Galaxy. Fun fact about that one, that was actually my first exposure to the Rockstar versions of Chucky's Friends. I remember seeing Jasper's design and being very confused. For some reason, he was wearing glasses. Now, I'm not an expert on every piece of CEC lore, but I do not remember Jasper ever wearing glasses. Maybe this was going to be a part of Rockstar Jasper's design, but was scrapped early on? But yeah, it was a weird inclusion. I actually didn't realize that was Jasper until much later. But still, why is he wearing glasses? As for the Jasper costume, while he hasn't appeared in many store locations, he does sometimes get rented out for grand reopenings of store locations. He's also in the annual Chuck E. Cheese Summer Concert Tour. Yeah, that's right, I gotta bring this up. It's cool that Chuck E. Cheese has an official tour now, even though it's just a bunch of rehashed songs. It's still cool to see Chuck E. Cheese characters outside the restaurants again. These first started around 2021 and have been going on since. Jasper's in every show playing his guitar and engaging with the audience. I do hope this concert roadshow continues for the next few years, and Jasper gets to sing another song. Also, CEC Entertainment, please bring this to Kentucky. I probably won't see it in person, but still, us CEC fans in Kentucky need some love. And that brings us to today. As of July 2023, Rockstar Jasper is the current Jasper design used by Chuck E. Cheese. But we aren't quite done just yet with talking about Jasper, as there's still another chapter. In this next chapter, I will be discussing a few Jasper costume variants, as well as animatronic variants, and even some different guitars Jasper used on some stages.
Boring pizza places versus Chuck E. Cheese's. Their pizza, Chucky's pizza. Next time Mom says, pizza, remember, Chuck E. Cheese, please. The restaurant where a kid can be a kid.
Real quick, before I talk about variants, I want to mention a few of Jasper's cameos in pop culture outside of CEC. First, Jasper made an appearance at the end of the 2001 movie, Made, where you get to see the two-stage Jasper singing. And that's not all, as the credits of this movie actually featured Jasper's cover of Ace in the Hole. It's pretty funny seeing CEC represented in a hard R-rated movie. Finally, in 2022, Jasper was referenced on an episode of Saturday Night Live, in which Benedict Cumberbatch played a real interesting form of Jasper. Also, I like that Jasper replica in the background. Starting with animatronic variants, I'm going to do general design variations first, and then the guitars next. First up, as we all know, the three-stage Jasper originally had a creepy latex mask, before switching to the plastic one, but surprisingly, some locations actually kept the latex mask. For example, the last American location with that mask was in Altoona, Pennsylvania, who removed it in 2012. The last public latex Jasper mask was in the old Guatemala City location, which lasted all the way up until 2016, when the location closed. Interestingly, when the new location in Guatemala opened, they actually put the 3-stage animatronics on display, and Jasper's latex mask is still on the animatronic, so it's not entirely gone. I wish more locations would do this with their animatronics. As for the Cyberamics, some of those Jasper bots actually kept the Pizza Time Theater mask it originally had. An example being our beloved Jasper from Florence, Kentucky, who was sadly removed after the location got 2.0. Now the last Cyberamic Jasper with a Pizza Time Theater mask is the Linwood, Washington location. As for alternative outfits used on Jasper animatronics, it was mainly just shirts that were slightly different from the normal cow print one, but sometimes he would wear a scarf or a bow tie or a Santa hat. Here's the Jasper animatronic from the Eastgate, Cincinnati location, back in the early 2000s. He's kinda creepy. Tucson, Arizona had a unique black and yellow shirt for Jasper. And lastly, here's Jasper as a reindeer. Finally, I can't do a Jasper video without mentioning Matt the Franchise. He's probably the biggest Jasper fan, and he has his own Jasper animatronic, which features a Pizza Time Theater mask, while being full-bodied. It's so cool that he was able to program it to custom dialogue and songs. The last variants to talk about regarding the animatronics is the different guitars Jasper used throughout the years. When concept unification started, Jasper originally was just going to keep the Beach Bear guitar, and most locations stuck with that, but others changed it up a little bit. Here's Pensacola's Jasper with a red guitar. Here's Madison, Wisconsin's Jasper with a blue guitar. Huntsville, Alabama used a red, white, and blue guitar. Mobile, Alabama had a pizza guitar at some point. And finally, here's Jasper's guitar from the Columbus, Georgia location. While most used the Beach Bear guitar, others, like this one from a Phoenix, Arizona location, used a Billy Bob guitar, also from the Rock-afire explosion. Some Jasper bots even reused his Pizza Time Theater banjo, such as in a couple of Massachusetts locations. Finally, in the early to mid-90s, several Jasper animatronics had their banjos and Beach Bear guitars replaced with what is known by many as the Flying Cheese guitar, which is now the standard and most common animatronic Jasper guitar. It too has a variant, this one which is green that Reindeer Jasper had. This was taken at Shiny Happy Danvers. Moving on from the animatronic, now I'm going to mention some walk-around costume alternative outfits. Pizza Time Theater Jasper had too many to name off, since pretty much every one of those costumes has unique clothing, but one I actually want to mention is the original Jasper animatronic. I know I said I was done with the animatronics, but I forgot about this one, and it's still noteworthy to bring up. For some reason, after the portrait bots from Winchester were moved to the corporate HQ, they put Jasper in this weird blue Where's Waldo shirt. Not sure why they did this. I don't know if something happened to his normal outfit, but it's unclear as to why they put this shirt on him. As for actual alternative costumes for the Jasper mascot suit, he doesn't have too many, but there's still some worth mentioning. Firstly, here's Jasper in a red plaid shirt. Here he is dressed as some sort of party clown, I think. And here he is in a colorful plaid shirt. Here's the outfit he wore in a lot of show tapes from the 2000s. It features Jasper in jeans and a jean jacket. Not sure if it was ever used in any locations, but I think it was just a show tape exclusive. Speaking of show tapes, here's Jasper in a bowling outfit from the CEC cover of Justin Bieber's song Baby. I'm not going to talk about every show tape exclusive outfit, or else we'd be here all day. I just wanted to bring this up because, well, I like it, and I like bowling. Here's an outfit Jasper wore at ChuckyCon 2019. It's similar to his jean jacket look, but now he's got a black jacket instead. Second to last outfit is this late 90s, early 2000s outfit. This is the outfit that I think Paducah, Kentucky's Jasper mascot had. Unfortunately, he was thrown away and destroyed in 2018 during their 2.0 remodel. And finally, here's one of the most cursed things I've ever seen in my entire life. Jasper's head on Pasquale's body. I don't have any words for this abomination, so let's move on. And finally, the last thing I want to bring up regarding Jasper is this guy. I've seen a lot of people mistake this guy for Jasper, or think it's a prototype Jasper costume. But I'm here to break it to y'all, but this dog ain't Jasper. This is Barnaby Beach Dog, the mascot of Australian Family Fun Center, named Grundy's, which, fun fact, actually housed a Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater in the early 80s. Actually, it was called Charlie Cheese's Pizza Playhouse, due to cultural reasons. And while this guy was around at the same time, he's not Jasper. Yes, he looks like Jasper, and might even be the same dog breed, but it ain't our beloved fruitcake dog. Although there is this. Is this one actually Jasper? It certainly looks like him. Although I saw this artwork in the background of a photo. That looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? Is Barnaby Beach Dog a ripoff of Jasper T Jowls? It's starting to look like it. But on that note, this officially concludes the history and evolution of Jasper Tennessee Jowls. And there you have it, the history of Jasper T Jowls from Chuck E. Cheese's. I can't wait to see what the company has in mind next for this character. Hopefully it will be something good. Let me know if I missed any Jasper costumes, animatronics, or general info, because I know I definitely missed a few things. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below and tell me what's your favorite version of Jasper T Jowls. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on the History of series. Bye-bye!
Here we go. You've got to have an ace in the hole. A little secret that nobody knows. Life is a gamble, a game we all play. But you need to save something for a rainy day. You've got to learn to play your cards right. If you expect to win in life, don't put it all on the line for just one roll. You got to have an ace in the hole. If you're headed down a one-way street and you're not sure it's the way you wanna go,